Are you struggling how to say that something has already happened at some point in the past? Well, this video is just for you because we're going to talk about the simple past tense. Hi there, I'm Ed Anguish from Speak English with Ed, where we give tips, tricks, help and information to make sure that you understand everything that you need to know to be able to pass your SELT English speaking exams. Today, we're going to look at the past tense. Just to have a little recap, we've already discussed the present simple tense in a previous video. So to let you know, just in case you missed that, there's a link at the top of the screen here now that will take you to that video, and it would be good to watch that as well, to watch that first to understand what we're talking about here, because this is moving on now onto the past tense. So what is a tense? Well, a tense is a verb that's been styled in such a way that it tells you when the action of the verb occurred, when it happened, whether it's happened in the past, in the future, or right now, whether it's valid now. So that's what a tense does. Now, a tense is formed by styling a verb. We've just said it's a style of verb. And there's two types of verb. There's regular verbs, verbs which conform to certain rules and regulations and conditions, and there are irregular verbs. So what's the difference between the two? Well, regular verbs have a base or a root, and it's this root verb that is used to form the present simple tense. For example, present simple tense, I walk to town. I walk to town. It's a present simple. Now, walk is the root verb in this little sentence here. And to make other tenses, you need to add something to the verb. You need to style it, to add a little bit of styling at the end of the verb to make it into a past tense. So, a past tense for the same sentence, making it in the past, would be I walked to town. Now here you've got walk is the root verb, as you can see, and ed is the styling which turns it into past tense. Now in this video we're going to concentrate on regular verbs. We're not going to worry about irregular verbs because they've got different rules of their own, but we're going to concentrate on regular verbs and forming them in the past simple tense. To do this, there are 4 rules, but don't get freaked out. We're going to explain everything all about them here, so you'll be understanding it all by the time you've finished. So there are 4 rules. Rule number 1 is that if a verb ends in an E, you add D to it. You add a D to the end of the verb. Now, let me just explain here. Now, you've got a verb like to hate, to live, to like. These are all 3 verbs, and they all end in the letter E. You can see the letter E. Hate, E. Live, ends in E. Like, ends in E. So, as the rule says up here, we have to add a D to the verb to make it into the past tense. So then it's going to become hate, and we're going to add a D, so it's going to be hated, hated, hate, past tense, hated. Right, and live, the next one, as you can see, it ends in an E, so we apply this rule, add a D to the verb to make it, here's a D, to make it lived, lived, lived. So we've got hated and lived. Both these verbs end in an E, and they've both had the rule applied to them that adds a D to make it into its past tense. Okay, are you with me? Let's try one more. Like. So we've got like, and if we add a D, it turns into liked. Liked. Now here, you can probably just hear a little bit of difference there. At the top, we said hated, and lived, and liked. So the two top ones have got a D sound at the end, hated and lived. And the bottom one has got a T sound, so it's liked, liked, liked. I'm not going to go into this now because this is all for another video, because there's different rules that apply to that. But I just want you to notice the difference as I'm saying these. You don't say liked, and you don't say hated or lived. You say lived and hated and liked. But as I said, there's all rules for them, and it's different video, so we'll get onto that in another video. So, rule number 2. That was rule number 1. Now for rule number 2. Rule number 2 says that regular verbs that have consonants for the last 2 letters, you add an ed. So what does this mean? Well, let me explain here. We've got regular verbs here. Start. The last 2 letters are consonants. Consonants, the last 2 letters. Finish. SH. Both these letters are consonants. There's not a vowel there. They're consonants. Same with walk. LK. The last 2, because it says here the last 2 letters. The last 2 letters are L and K, and both of those letters are consonants. So start, finish and walk all need to have this rule applied to them, the 2 consonant rule applied to them. So what does that mean? Well, it's already said that we add ed to the end. This way they become, start becomes add ed, and it becomes started. Started. If we take finish, we add ed, becomes finished. Finished. So we've got the ed, the d and the t ending sounds here. But as I said, don't worry about them. We're going to cover those in another video. But for now, you need to know that you add ed to the end if both the last 2 letters are consonants. Same with walk. You add ed, and this becomes walked. So you've got started, finished and walked. These are all in the past tense. All of them are in the past tense, and they all had in their original form, in their base form, they had the last 2 letters were consonants. S and H consonant, R and T on start consonant, S and H on finish are consonants, 2 consonants, and LK walk ends with 2 consonants. And they need for that under this rule, because they've finished that way, they need ed added to the end, and then they will become started, finished and walked in the past tense. This is how you say, I started something yesterday. I finished something yesterday. I walked somewhere yesterday. So this is how you make your verbs into a past tense. So that was rule 2, and we've got another 2 to go. So this is rule 3. Now rule 3 says that if a verb ends in Y, that's a Y, any verb, regular verb that ends in Y, then you rub the Y out, put an I in and add ed. I know that was a bit quick. No, you change the Y, you take the I away, Y away, and you add I and then ed. So you change the Y to an I and add ed. Let's have a look at it, a couple of examples. So verbs here, 3 verbs, all ending in Y. Study, marry and carry. So under these rules we need to remove the Y and change it for an I. Change the Y for an I and add ed. So if we take study, S-T-U-D-Y, we've got to get rid of the Y and replace it with I. Replace it with I, and then we add ed to the end. So we've got studied, and it's as simple as that. It sounds very, very complicated, but it and at the beginning I suppose it is, but you will get used to it by practicing looking for words like this and practicing and practice changing them into the past tense. So let's go on. And marry ends in a Y. We change the Y for an I, and we're going to add ed to it, and then we're going to make it into married. That's married. So we've got studied, changed from study, and we've got marry, changed from married, and we've got carry. Now we're going to apply the same thing. We're going to remove the Y and replace it with an I, and then we're going to add ed. So we've got carried. We've got studied, married, and carried. All refer to the past tense now. Study, S-T-U-D-Y. To make it into the past tense, I-E-D. Remove the Y, change it for an I, and then add ed. So you've got studied. Same for marry. Remove the Y, put an I in its place, and then add ed. And carry. Change the Y, put an I in its place, and add ed. Studied, married, and carried. Right, that's rule 3. Rule 4. This is the last one. Now, this is for verbs that have a vowel and a consonant at the end of the word. So the last two letters are a vowel and a consonant. And to change this into the past tense, then we have to double the last consonant and add ed. Now, doubling the last consonant means you make it two of them, two of the consonants, two of them, and add ed. So let's have a look and see what that is in practice. Travel, stop, and plan. All these conform to the rule here. We've got E, L, a vowel, and then a consonant. Stop, as the last two letters are a vowel and a consonant. And plan, the last two letters again are a vowel and a consonant. This is E, the vowel E with a consonant. This is the vowel O with a consonant. And this is a vowel A with a consonant. So we've got travel, stop, and plan. Now, to turn these into the past tense, we have to double the last consonant and add an ed. So what does that mean? Well, it means taking the travel, and the last consonant is the last letter in the word, and you double it, so it needs another L. You have to double it to make two L's. Right, and then you add ed. So now we have travelled. Travelled. So this is travel. In the past tense, it's travelled. And then same with stop. Stop. You take the last consonant, which is P, and you add another P. You make it into a double. You double it, and then you add ed to it. Stopped. So we've got travelled, stopped. And the last one is plan. Now, we're going to do exactly the same here. We're going to add another N, because N is the last consonant in the word. So we've got plan. We add another N and then add ed to it. So we've got planned. We've got travelled, stopped, and planned. And each one of these has had the last letter here, L, P, and N doubled. So there are two L's, two P's, and two N's in the past tense. So that's the 4 rules to make a vowel into a tense, to tell you in the past simple tense. They're the 4 rules. So what are the 4 rules? Let's just have a reminder of the 4 rules. We've got rule number 1. If a verb ends in E, we add a D to the verb. This makes it liked, like, added a D, makes it into the past tense, liked. We saw that. Rule number 2, for verbs that have consonants for the last 2 letters, that's both of the last 2 letters, add for a start, ADD, you would add ED to the verb. So, in our example, we saw start, we added ED and made it into started. Start has 2 consonants as the last letters, and we add ED to make it into past tense. Now, for rule number 3, if the verb ends in a Y, what do? Well, we change the Y to an I and add ED. We change the Y into an I and add ED. So, our example, we had study, which was STUDY. We changed the Y into an I, and we came up with the past tense of studied. STUDIED, not YED, IED, studied. And rule number 4, verbs that have a vowel and a consonant for their last 2 letters. So this is a vowel and then a consonant for the last 2 letters of the word. Then you double the last consonant, so you make it into 2, and then you add ED. As in travelled. Travel is TRAVEL, travel. And then to make it into the past tense, to make it so that the reader will know or listener will know that it's the past tense, we add 2L. We make it into 2 L's, we add another L, and then we add ED, so we've got travelled. And this is basically the past tense, how you would make your present tense, turn it into a past tense. Past tense is something that's already happened and you want to talk about it. Follow these 4 rules on all your regular verbs. Now, not all verbs are regular, so we'll get into irregular verbs a little bit later, but because the words actually change. But we shall see that a bit later. So don't forget to practice, and practice a little bit more if you can. Do a little bit every day. Don't try and leave it all to one day. Try and do a little bit every day, even if it's only 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour. Practice every day. Read, watch some of the videos. Go back over the videos and refresh your mind about it, because it's all consolidates into your mind and you remember a lot better. So, having said that, if you found this video helpful in any sort of way, then please give it a thumbs up, because it all helps the channel. And if you haven't subscribed already, then please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. That way, YouTube will tell you every time that we release a new video, and you won't miss out on any of the tips and tricks. I don't want you to miss out on any tips and tricks that will help you pass your test. So, until the next video, this is Ed Anguish saying bye.